Good morning and thank you for coming. Today I came here with a question. Is it worth correcting foreign language learners' written work? The answer seems obvious, right? Most teachers, if not all, correct and provide feedback on their students' written work. And we both, students and teachers, spend a lot of time dealing with this. I myself, in a study conducted together with Robert Wood, professor of the University of Oxford, found that both foreign language learners and teachers confirm the frequency and the value of this practice. So then, why is this such a controversial issue? Well, whether written corrective feedback, also known as error correction, facilitates L2 learners' improvement of their writing skills has been a contentious topic in second language studies over the past 30 years. The debate was initially triggered by Truscott 1996 review article entitled "The Case Against Grammar Correction in L2 Writing Classes," where he made the strong claim that grammar correction is ineffective and potentially counterproductive for L2 learners and should therefore be abandoned. Of course, the academic community was shocked. Something they have been doing for ages could be a dangerous practice. In response to this paper, Ferris, in 1999, pointed out that Truscott research evidence was limited and methodologically flawed. The subjects of various studies were not comparable, and the research paradigms and teaching strategies varied widely across the studies. Moreover, she accused him of overstating negative evidence while disregarding research results that contradicts his thesis, like those from the studies of Fatman and Wally 1990 or Lalande 1982. Therefore, Ferris concluded that there was no reason why anyone need abandon error correction. As you can imagine, there was a heated debate with a series of responses and counter-responses between the two authors in the following years. If you are interested, this can be found in the Journal of Second Language Writing. In 2004, Ferris, in a review article, insisted that the research evidence was still inconclusive in determining the efficacy of error correction, and called specifically for more carefully designed longitudinal studies, including a control group that received no feedback. Subsequently, many experimental studies have been conducted addressing this issue since then. So today, to answer our question, we will examine recent empirical studies of written corrective feedback, analyzing findings and limitations to extract new pedagogical and research implications. But to do so, let's first define some key terms relating to written corrective feedback, research, and summarize Truscott claims. What constitutes written feedback? Research exploring different types of written corrective feedback has shown that teachers usually provide learners with written feedback on various aspects: grammar, vocabulary, content, and mechanics. This written feedback generally involves error correction and teacher commentary. Error correction stands generally for the written correction of surface errors, grammar, vocabulary, etc. On the other hand, teacher commentary, also known as metalinguistic corrective feedback, is an explicit explanation about the learner's error that the teachers provide. This explanation can be given in written form or face-to-face. However, both types of feedback and teacher commentary can be further categorized in focused and unfocused. Feedback focus only targets one or more features of the target language that are a current focus of instruction, such as the preposition, while unfocused feedback addresses all kinds of errors that the learner may make in a test. Then we also have direct and indirect. Direct feedback involves the explicit corrections of linguistic errors. through, for example, deleting unnecessary elements, inserting missing elements, writing correct forms close to the errors, providing metalinguistics explanations, etc., etc. Indirect, on the other hand, refers to the singling out the errors without providing any correction or solution to it. Finally, the last classification relates to its timing. It can be either synchronous, provided in real time while the learner is still writing the test, or asynchronous, provided sometime after the test has been completed. This is a relatively recent concept resulting from technological innovations such as Google Docs. Such packages allow teachers to watch learners write and make comments or changes to their work in real time. It appears then that the issue goes beyond whether correcting foreign language learners' written work is worthwhile or not. We must also consider how we should correct it, which feedback fits better the proficiency level of our students, and when this feedback should be provided. So the picture, as you see, is getting more and more complicated. Let's go back then to the article that triggered the debate and see a summary of Truscott claims. Reviewing research evidence before 1996, Truscott argued both practically and theoretically that grammar correction is ineffective, potentially harmful, and should be suppressed from writing courses. His major arguments were: learning a language is a complex process that follows predetermined acquisition patterns that are unaffected by instruction. Well, here we should see this in context. Back in the day, Krassen's comprehensive input hypothesis and his monitor model were trendy, and second language learning was seen as naturally occurring. Therefore, error correction, as any other explicit instruction, played a limited role in second language acquisition for all these authors. Second, he argued that teacher corrections are often inconsistent or unhelpful due to, for example, the complexity of the grammar or the lack of time required for high-quality correction. Similarly, he argues that learners' cognitive response to teachers' feedback does not lead to permanent acquisition, mostly because learners do not always understand teachers' corrections and often quickly forget newly acquired knowledge. He also argues that error correction might detrimentally affect a student's motivation and discourage learners from experimenting and encouraging shortened and simplified writing. He also argues that spending time processing written corrective feedback distracts teachers and learners from other aspects of writing, such as organization and content. And obviously, he also argued that there is no evidence that written corrective feedback reduces the number of errors and has fluency or benefits second language acquisition. In the following years, several studies were conducted trying to find evidence to challenge Truscott claims. For example, Ashwin 2000 or Ferris and Robert 2001 demonstrated that written corrective feedback was valuable for test revision, demonstrating a short-term effectiveness of error correction. However, Truscott pointed out that these studies failed to provide evidence of learning, which, in his terms, referred to improved L2 learners' accuracy in new written tests. Therefore, Chandler carried out two studies in 2003 where she found that written corrective feedback combined with revision improved L2 learners' accuracy over time. However, Truscott noted that the absence of control groups in this study undermined the results. In an attempt to reconcile controversy, Hyland and Hyland conducted an extensive narrative review, but they conclude that it was difficult to draw any clear conclusions and generalization from the literature because of varied population treatments and research design. Addressing what Truscott called the big questions, development of grammatical accuracy, and if written corrective feedback should be provided, Ferris stressed the need for more robust research about the role of written corrective feedback. Following this call, many studies explored the influence of written corrective feedback of the development of the grammatical accuracy of L2 learners. This study shared some methodological characteristics. Firstly, they all include a control group. Secondly, they target the use of indefinite article A and the definitive article D. In other words, they investigated the benefits of focused written corrective feedback. Thirdly, they went beyond short-term improvement in revisions to explore gains in new pieces of writing. A clear example of this kind of studies is the one of Bichner et al. 2005, who conducted a 12-week study with 53 learners of English as a foreign language. They investigated the value of written corrective feedback and face-to-face teacher commentary on the development of grammatical accuracy of 3 English grammatical features: simple past tense, preposition, and definitive articles. Learners were asked to write 4 informal letters. They were divided into 3 conditions: one with feedback and face-to-face commentary, second just feedback, and third control group. Grammatical accuracy was measured by the percentage of correct use of target grammatical features. Results showed that the first group outperformed the other 2 in their use of articles and past tense, but not of the prepositions. Researchers attribute these results to the clear root basis of the definitive article at past tense, making the metalinguistic explanation more useful and easier to learn. They also found that learners in the treatment groups improved their grammatical accuracy over time. Unfortunately, learners were not randomly distributed. Each group corresponded to one class. And also, they received different amounts of instruction. The first group, 20 hours a week, the second, 10, and the third, 4 hours a week, which likely distorted the results, as Truscott pointed out. Nonetheless, generally, the results of this study that followed Ferris' methodological recommendation demonstrated the value of written feedback and its positive effect in short-term and long-term grammatical accuracy compared with the control groups. This study also showed that written corrective feedback in combination with face-to-face teacher commentary facilitated grammatical accuracy more than written commentary alone. However, few studies comparing focus and unfocus were not unanimous. Ellis et al. 2008 found both approaches equally effective, whereas Sin et al. 2009 found that focus seemed to be more effective. Concerning direct and indirect written corrective feedback, Bichner and Knott 2010 and Sin 2007 suggested that direct written corrective feedback led to greater grammatical accuracy than indirect. Both studies found that direct corrective feedback yield to better results in long term. Even though this post-2004 body of literature consistently found that written corrective feedback facilitates the acquisition of a target grammatical features, it was criticized for its narrow focus. The single feature focus articles is hard to apply in real classroom and therefore has little value for L2 learners and teachers. The simplistic use of articles presented to learners have been criticized also for potentially misleading learners to think what they learned from written corrective feedback is the whole picture of article usage. Therefore, other researchers have now followed this article craze, investigating the value of written corrective feedback in the development of writing accuracy over the time with mixed results. Let's see in detail 2 important studies. First, we have Truscott and Xu, 2008, who investigated the effect of unfocused feedback on L2 learner revision and new writing. To do so, 47 Taiwanese English as a foreign language learners were randomly distributed into 2 groups, an experimental group who received feedback and a control group. In the first session, all learners wrote a narrative essay. based on a series of pictures. In the second, 1 week later, the participants of the experimental group received the first draft back with the errors simply underlined and were asked to revise it. The control group simply rewrote the draft. In the third session, both groups wrote a new story based on different sequence of pictures. The results showed a significant difference between the experimental group and the control group in the rewrite task. However, the performance of both groups in the new written task was identical. Hence, researchers concluded that feedback had a positive effect, reducing errors in revision, but had no influence on writing development. The problem is that for comparison, they did not take into account specific errors or error types. Actually, Bruton, 2009, who carried out an exhaustive qualitative analysis of Truscott and Sue's study, found that in the first session, the most frequent error was the past tense of the verb to be, and that the error was reduced by 75% in later tests. This analysis suggests that, in fact, written corrective feedback was beneficial in reducing instances of particular errors all over the time. We also have the study of Van Veningen, 2010, using a large sample of 268 students of Dutch. And he explored 8 research questions, including one testing Truscott hypothesis, which claimed that feedback could only benefit not grammatical errors and that it made students simplify their writing. The study consisted of 4 sessions, pre-test, treatment, post-test, and the late post-test, and learners were randomly distributed into 4 groups and conditions. The first received direct and focused feedback, the second indirect and focused feedback, the third self-correction, was a control group, and the other one, no. No correction at all. The result shows that both unfocused groups outperformed the 2 control groups. They also showed that only direct feedback facilitated lasting grammatical improvements, whereas indirect feedback improved long-term accuracy in non-grammatical features. These results refuted Truscott's hypothesis about the potential harmful effects of written corrective feedback. It seems that there is evidence that written corrective feedback facilitates correction. However, of great concern is whether this short-term benefit can be transferred to new written tests and can facilitate acquisition and development on L2 writing skills. Many studies support the idea that feedback can improve learner linguistic accuracy in new tests, even up to 10 months later, see Pitcher and Knott, 2009. However, some problems persist in some of these studies, like the ecological validity of their narrow linguistic feature approach, the articles. Nonetheless, Van Veningen, 2008 and 12, obtained similar findings using a less disputed procedure. Regarding the types of feedback, face-to-face teacher commentary appears to facilitate grammar accuracy more than written commentary or error correction alone. The scarce number of studies comparing focused and unfocused provides an inconclusive picture. Summarizing the research in this area to date, Sintani and Avery, 2016, note that most studies investigating focus have found positive effects on writing accuracy in both immediate and delayed post-tests, whereas the evidence relating to unfocused have been less common and have produced more mixed results. Concerning direct and indirect, research suggests that both have positive effects on writing accuracy in short term, as measured on immediate post-test. However, Van Veningen found that different types of error benefit more from different written corrective feedback. Only direct correction promotes durable grammatical accuracy improvements of a medium size, whereas pupil non-grammatical accuracy benefited from indirect. Nonetheless, findings in this area remain still inconclusive. Kang and Han, 2015 meta-analysis, for example, found no significant difference between direct and indirect feedback, although the overall effect size was greater for the former. The authors also hypothesized that direct and indirect may be differentially effective at different proficiency levels, with the former being more effective for lower proficiency learners and the latter more effective for more advanced learners who have greater internal resources to draw upon when correcting an error. Finally, relating to statements, when the feedback should be provided synchronically or not, only few studies have investigated this issue. And these studies have found that learners respond positively to synchronous feedback. Further, in the only experimental study to date comparing these two modes of feedback, Sintani and Aubrey 2016 found that both asynchronous and synchronous led to greater gains in accuracy compared to a control group, but that synchronous written corrective feedback had a greater and more durable effects than asynchronous. However, there are lingering concerns regarding all these studies. Firstly, the methodology uniquely targeting English article usage make it difficult to generalize the findings to other linguistic features, L2 learners, or context. Moreover, some studies mix written feedback, for example, indirect feedback, mass teaching commentary, focus feedback, and indirect, making it impossible to tease apart the effectiveness of each written feedback strategy. Secondly, reporting practices often miss information about moderating variables, like, for example, length of writing, absence or presence of grammar extraction, etc. They also miss reporting some basic statistical data. Finally, some studies have explored the influence of other individual and group differences. Singh, 2007, found a correlation between aptitude and the benefit of feedback. And Van Winningen, 2012, found no correlation between educational background and the benefits of feedback. All in all, examination of the written corrective feedback and its relationship with other independent variables would be beneficial. What implications we can draw from it? Well, firstly, there is a need for more longitudinal studies that can accurately measure the effect of written corrective feedback over time. Secondly, the use of mixed method could clarify how learners react to different types of feedback and how they use them. Thirdly, a clear differentiation of error types and diligent tracking of learners' development would move research forward. Fourthly, time should be treated as a variable, since time often generates pressure and anxiety, making learners focus more on completing the tasks than on applying what they have learned from previous feedback. Regarding its pedagogical implications, correcting L2 learners' written work can have benefits regarding correction or rewrite. Of rating concern if these benefits can be transferred to new written tests and therefore facilitate the acquisition of new writing skill. What it is clear is that providing learners with high quality feedback adapted to their needs and the teaching objectives makes a difference. Focused feedback is good for lower proficiency students because they do not feel overwhelmed by the great number of mistakes they make and fits better what their teachers want to teach. Indirect feedback seems to be better for high proficiency students who can rely on both their previous language knowledge and even if there is not yet enough evidence regarding synchronous and asynchronous, and more research obviously is needed, one thing is clear: synchronous feedback is better than no feedback. What is more, online grammar and spell checkers can provide the students with immediate feedback, helping them to self-correct their writing. To conclude, I would like to say that although writing and correcting is time-consuming for both teachers and learners, writing is one of the 4 language skills and should be encouraged, practiced, and improved. So please, students, write. Don't be afraid of making mistakes, because as my mentor usually said, every mistake is a learning opportunity. It's up to us, teachers, to help them to make the best out of them. Thank you very much.